Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and we've got this paradox in America and within center-right ranks. On the one hand, all these suburban Mercedes Marxists wearing pea hats.
I've never heard you say Mercedes Marxist.
Yeah, you have. Well, you have been listening because I do.
No, I've been listening.
Mm-hmm.
No.
The Chardonnay Antifa I'm talking about.
Okay.
On the one hand, you have this problem, these ghastly, middle-aged, leftist, pea hat-wearing women who are driving all the identitarian politics. On the one hand, you have this gender gap in extremely or very proud to be an American. 77% of men in America, only 59% of women. Big gap. But on the other hand, in the conservative ranks, since I've been in GOP and conservative politics for a long time, what you see invariably is that conservative women do the majority of the work. I mean, the pro-life movement is led by conservative women, all of the moral issues really led by women.
They do the heavy lifting.
They do. I mean, seriously. And so what to do? I guess we need to mint more conservative women. I guess that's the answer. And how we do that, Michelle Easton may have some insight. She's written a book about it. Michelle Easton is the president of the Claire Booth Lewis Center for Conservative Women. Her book, How to Raise a Conservative Daughter, alternative title that I would suggest, How to Save Western Civilization, because if you can do How to Raise a Conservative Daughter, you get to the other one. Michelle Easton, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm with you. I like that, How to Save Western Civilization. The book, How to Raise a Conservative Daughter, it's intended to be a guide for parents, grandparents, anybody in a position to influence the development of young Americans, young women today, because the cultural forces arrayed against the family today can be terrifying.
It shouldn't. It should. I mean, just in terms of comporting with the culture of today, shouldn't the title also be though How to Raise a Conservative Birthing Person? Should it be birthing,
no,
birthing person?
Moms forever.
No, okay.
Right.
Parent one. Human.
One of my chapters. Yeah. One of my chapters is called "A Woman's Differences Are Her Strengths." The miracle of giving birth is something that women are makes us so special. It's a breathtaking miracle, and women are women and men are men, and thank heavens for that.
Well, so give us some tips, not me per se, but our listening audience there, how to raise a conservative daughter. I think you've done it, so how do we replicate your success?
Yes, I've been working with thousands of young women now for 28 years here at the Center for Conservative Women. So I've noticed some things about them and their families that has made them turn out pretty well. One of the keys is to help daughters understand that they are loved by God. The faith aspect of being a conservative is key. You don't have to be a believer to be a conservative, but it's harder if you're not. And from there in the book, I describe how to move daughters forward through understanding the value of life, of work, of hard work as a virtue, of how to handle money, of deferred gratification, of how exceptional and incredible our country is. You know, Dan and Amy, it used to be a young woman growing up in a conservative family, she would pretty much turn out conservative, but it's just not a fair fight anymore because the cultural climate today, the social media, the radical indoctrination in schools, the entertainment industry, the beliefs have to be taught and nurtured and cultivated throughout a girl's upbringing. It's more of a job for parents and grandparents than it used to be.
But then how do you do that?
You ground them until they're conservative.
No.
Oh,
I mean, what's the process of letting them know their self-worth and not being, stuck in this toxic social media world?
Yeah, well, for starters, in terms of faith, you take them to church. And even if you are not devout, you take them to church, you have them associate with people of faith to understand, that God is a key part of life and that government can never be a substitute for. But that's what the left thinks, because they their God is government, and we're all supposed to be dependent on government, on all the goodies, all the free stuff that they like to give. But we know that the true self-worth comes from religious belief, and it's a different thing from self-esteem. You know, there's a lot of talk about self-esteem. Tell kids how great they are 10 times a day. No, self-esteem is, oh, I'm happy with myself. Self-worth is a sense of your own value as a human being, and that comes in large part from faith, from knowing that the creator of the universe cares about you. And so faith is the first step along the way. And then there's so many other things. I mean, I knew when I was 7 or 8 how big government overtaxed, because my father used to talk about it every night at the dinner table, the things our family couldn't do because government overtaxed us. You have to talk to your kids about the issues, and your daughters. You have to teach them the core conservative beliefs, and how wonderful it is to be a woman, and how life is sacred at the beginning of life when babies are conceived, and at the end when you get old. You have to talk about these things. Don't just assume they're going to get it through osmosis, because it's stacked against them today in the culture.
Well, that's where I wanted to go. So that foundation, you say, by going to church and being around faithful people, and then defending life, that seems to me a real fork in the road. You either learn at a young age that that life is sacred and is to be defended from conception to natural death, or you fall prey to the sort of everything is a personal choice. You go sort of to the libertine, I should say, route, and if you get life wrong, then you get just about everything else wrong. It seems to be pretty strongly correlated there. If you get life right, you get a lot else, if not everything else, right too. And so that important sort of conversation and education.
That's right, and so much of what is being taught in many of the schools, public and private, we don't believe in. You know, they teach this 1619 project that that America's revolution was to defend slavery. Excuse me, there was a king. We were overthrowing an abusive monarchy. They talk about socialism, and how great socialism and how evil capitalism is. You got to point out to your kids, these caravans from Central America, it's much closer for them to go to Venezuela, but they're not going to that socialist paradise, are they? They come to America where there's freedom and opportunity. You have to look at what's going on in the schools. Critical race theory. All you white kids, you're born racist. Little 5-year-olds, they're telling them they're born racist. And the beautiful black kids, and you are victims. No, they're not. I mean, you have to get a lot more involved in what's going on with your children and with your school, with their social life, and social media. Many parents don't understand how powerful it is, how influential Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, and they need to restrict. They need to look at it and restrict the harmful content.
Yeah, because kids don't watch TV anymore. They just watch their iPhones and YouTubes.
That's right.
Or
And you go to
YouTube, plural. Yeah.
I mean, So, Michelle, I want to ask you what your daughter thinks of this book, and did she help you at all?
I have thousands and thousands of daughters that I've worked with. The truth is, I lost my daughter in a heart surgery. So that's part of my calling, I think, that all of these young women that I work with, I'm always thinking, my little girl, what would I have wanted somebody to tell her? And so it's interesting how you get these callings in life, isn't it? A door shuts and then a door opens. But I can tell you, the young women, we have 7 women here this summer from all over the country, college interns, and they love it. I wrote this book for parents and grandparents, but they love it. They say this is really a guide for us as well, to help us as we're growing up and for when we have children.
The other thing, too, is and you have a chapter on this, is to steep them in the actual history of America, including the individuals who made a positive difference in America's history, so they know there are models they can replicate in a modern context. So, for example, Susan B. Anthony, she wasn't just a suffragette, which was something to note. She was also a pro-life leader, thus the Susan B. Anthony list in D.C., for example. And, a lot, if when you're in this arena, you take for granted that people know this, but they don't know this. And of course, in government school systems, they're going to be loath to talk about Susan B. Anthony, the pro-life leader. But this is important for young women to see examples and not examples of people to emulate and not sort of stylized versions of their history. Susan B. Anthony comes to mind.
That's right, Dan. The last chapter of How to Raise a Conservative Daughter is about some great conservative women leaders that our girls are never going to learn about in any of these women's studies programs, because the conservative and women's studies programs are about liberal, left-wing, socialist, Marxist women, not about all women. So I give them some great role models, some that have passed away, Claire Booth Luce, Margaret Thatcher, Phyllis Schlafly, some who are still with us, like Senator Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee, Governor Noem, Laura Schlesinger, Star Parker. We have some wonderful, great role models, strong, smart, conservative women who love being women, who believe in conservative ideals, and who have led very, very good lives as role models. How to Raise a Conservative Daughter really is meant to be a primer, perhaps to say, to raise young women with a lot of ideas, how to have conversations with them, how to have open-ended questions, how to urge them to politely challenge teachers. When a teacher is going on about socialism, saying, could you share Nobel Prize winner economist Milton Friedman's view on that? Or if she's railing about how a woman has rights to control her body and have an abortion, a young woman can say, does science tell us that her baby is a part of her body or a separate human being? How to Raise a Conservative Daughter is filled with specific ideas like that. It's not too much philosophizing. There's some. And a lot of the experiences that I've picked up from working with these thousands of young women here over the 28 years that I've had this Center for Conservative Women.
Very good. She is Michelle Easton, president of the Center for Conservative Women. The book, again, How to Raise a Conservative Daughter, my alternative title, How to Save Western Civilization. Important book. Michelle Easton, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with that book.
Thank you, and God bless you both.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Let's be boring and do a commercial about cash out refinances. It's Ryan, and our mortgage team will often have a listener say, I think I understand what a cash out refinance is, but can't that be bad for you sometimes? So let's hit on that. As with anything, it's certainly not the right move for everyone. If we don't have to